It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com, get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. Also, too, all different kinds of services. One thing I'm going to be talking about later on tonight is a runaway kid, missing persons, and runaway kid investigations. There's no order form for that on the website. You just have to contact me directly and talk to me about it. We'll arrange a consultation. We'll come up with a plan. But that's one of my specialties for sure. I was just written about in a book, Finding Missing People. I forget what the name of the book is, but I was just written about in this book. I'll be telling you about it late tonight. Also, too, hacked email account investigations. If you think somebody's reading your emails, I can investigate that. Harassing telephone investigations. I invented something with that where I can create a trap line for you. You pass your calls through my trap line. We can unblock caller ID block and unblock unknown callers. All kinds of fun stuff over there at emailrevealer.com. Okay, we have, I guess, a returning guest, I guess from Europe, Patrick, who's the director and producer behind Program to Kill, Satanic Cover-Up, which you can find on YouTube. It's like an 80-episode YouTube documentary that's in installments. It's like 80 different ones. Surrounding all the famous serial killing cases and other public cases. Let's just introduce Patrick and get into this. Patrick, are you there?
Yes, thank you for having me, Ed.
Having you back, you mean? Because we did this before, and the recording didn't save, and Patrick was nice enough to come back. So thank you so much, brother. Tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Patrick. I'm now 29 years old. And when I was 15 years old, I started to become fascinated with the topic of serial killers. And I did a lot of research. It was the early stages of YouTube. So I saw a lot of documentaries, movies, read magazines, books, everything. And I think 5 years later, I also became aware of the conspiracy arena about 9/11, chemtrails, and the mind control. And just by sheer chance, I found the book Program to Kill by author Dave McGowan in a bookstore and took it home with me. And I really thought it was just another serial killer book. But the information that McGowan provides really came to the conclusion that all those serial killers have military connections, mind control connections, intelligence agencies, the occult, Satanism, and secret societies. And those are the topics we're going to discuss this evening.
Military, mind control, Satanism, secret societies, and also biker gangs.
Yes, also, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, last time we did this, we started, I guess, with Paul Bernardo and Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, which I think are three major cases that are indicative of the cover-up of the Satanism behind the scenes. But I'd like to start this time, and we'll get into those, with the case of Cary Stayner and Stephen Stayner up in northern Yosemite National Park in the United States. You're familiar with that case, right?
Yes, I've listened to your various podcasts, which very much information, very good information.
Yeah, and what can you describe that case for us? It's starting with Stephen Stayner, the little boy that was abducted, supposedly.
Yeah, maybe you can give the few listeners a synopsis. I only know the information McGowan provides in his book.
Well, we've done a couple of shows on this. One with Stephen Sanzeri, who was a bail bondsman, who bailed out one of the characters involved in all this scenario here. And then also, too, with a woman named Dunn, who actually was targeted by these same kidnappers and serial killers up there at Yosemite Park. But the story starts out with Stephen Stayner, the little boy Stephen, who was lured into a car by these adult pedophiles and kept with them for about 10 years until they went to take another kid, and Stephen took the other kid to the police department. Somehow Stephen was returned home, but he was allowed to, because he was closer to his abductors than he was to his own family. And there's even some allegations that he was allowed to talk to his abductors during the time he was returned back to his home. And there's even some allegations, too, that he was actually given by the parents to his abductors. There's a lot of shady business going on there with that. But what happens is his older brother, Kerry Stainer, goes to work at Yosemite Park and gets arrested for a series of serial killings, of serial murders. And he also, Kerry Stainer claims he was being molested by his uncle at the same time Stephen was being kidnapped. And then also, too, his uncle turns up dead in an apartment that they were sharing due to a shotgun wound. Okay, is that enough? You know what I mean? What more do you need?
Yeah, there are a lot of hidden connections in the Stainer family, apparently. I think they used the sons for scapegoats in the end, especially Kerry Stainer. And really, if you investigate this case, you really come to the conclusion that there are multiple accomplices directly involved in this case, which were all connected to drug trafficking. But in the end, the only person that was convicted was Kerry Stainer.
Who actually confessed, and that's a common thing that goes on in this whole situation, too. That's a common to the pattern, right? That the guy who they catch confesses and doesn't implicate others.
Yes, and even the last killing, he was sworn by the FBI and prosecutors that he will never confess to the ultimate motive about that killing. So he took the secret to his grave, why he allegedly killed someone.
And yeah, that's right. It's part of his deal. He's not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
What do you make of that aspect? That with a lot of these cases, they go to their grave without implicating anybody else officially, but they do talk about it in their confessions and different things. They do mention other people who were involved. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I really think it's a case of police corruption and coercion and blackmail. I think there was a lot of drug trafficking in Yosemite Park.
Yeah.
And probably law enforcement was also involved in that. And they took a firm choice to prosecute only one guy and not the whole group, because there goes the money.
Very true, because prior to this murder, Kerry had an arrest for marijuana. He had a couple of minor, it might have been meth too, but he had a couple of minor arrests that they just dropped the charges and let him go. So again, hey, what about informants? Do you find that a lot of these other cases that people involved were police informants?
Yes, Fred and Rose West in England were police informants, and also allegedly Paul Bernardo, reportedly. So. And a few others at the top of my head, I can't remember.
Well, describe the West case. Which one was that?
Yeah, that's a very weird case. It was in the 1970s in Gloucestershire, England. And Fred and Rose West had a whole apartment building for themselves with their children. And they were lodging rooms there for lodgers. And basically, they were sexually assaulting, torturing, and prostituting his wife for various lodgers and people who were living there in the street. And they continued to do that for, I think, almost 2 decades. And there was also police complicity, because there were also policemen going to the house like a brothel. So.
Right, and they again, too, another thing you left out in your pattern here you were describing of that military, mind control, Satanism, secret societies, is also snuff films. There were always videotaping involved in these things, too, right? Yeah,
definitely, yeah. I think almost practically every serial killer case, even with in Las Vegas, that guy was videotaping himself. So I don't know for which case. Many people say it's like trophies. They like to see themselves and reliving the crime, but I think it's more sinister type of connection, that there are people in government, the elites, the secret societies get off on that and want to make money from those videotapes.
Yeah, actually in Vegas here, he had a camera pointed to himself, but they're claiming that there was no recording, that he wasn't recording himself. They're saying he had a lot of electronic equipment too in the hallways, monitoring what was going on in the hallways, but they're claiming no recording. So, but who knows? That story's changed so many times. Now, it goes back again, too, this business about the recording. Because in Abu Ghraib, right, over there, where they were torturing the prisoners, they were recording them over there, too. And there's an allegation that they were sending those recordings to the White House, and Dick Cheney was watching those recordings every night. And there's also allegations that they would, take a suspect from his home and bring him to the prison, and then go and kidnap the guy's wife and kids and rape the wife and kids in front of the guy they were interrogating. Now, which goes back to the Phoenix program. Now how many, describe what the Phoenix program was and some of these serial killers who come out of the Phoenix program.
Could you please describe the Phoenix program? Because you have better English and I can direct serial killers to them.
Okay. And what is your first language?
It's Belgium.
Belgian, okay. I like the waffles, right? I love your waffles over there. Okay. Have you heard of Belgian waffles?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. But I always got to make a little joke. Someone says they're from Turkey. I say, well, I love your sandwiches. Okay. The Phoenix program, okay? And I had Doug Valentine on the show, who wrote the original book, and he had access to the CIA director and stuff like that. Is basically in Vietnam. It was a secret program where they would, again, get tips about people who were North Korean Viet Cong sympathizers, and they would go and kidnap them, take them to these places, and torture them. And they would go to villages and towns and stuff like that and find people who they suspected were sympathizers and cut their heads off and put them on sticks. And this grew into an extortion racket where if someone didn't like a competing businessman, they would go and rat him out. And the U.S. government, thugs and goons like they were, would go in and eliminate business adversaries, drug rivals, criminal gang rivals. And this is what it turned into. And it doesn't seem like it's ever stopped. This is an active program because they continue to Abu Ghraib, the same exact thing. So give us an idea of some of the serial killers who came out of that program.
Yeah, for the people who have read Program to Kill by David McGowan, he actually said that the Phoenix program was brought home to America because a lot of these guys who were in the jungle were coming back to America and were doing the exact same thing that we're doing in Vietnam. You have the case of the Genesee River killer, Arthur Shawcross, which actually demonstrated that he had a surgical intervention in his brains, that they literally were doing surgical procedures to make him like the son of Uncle Sam. You have also the uncle of Richard Ramirez, who took Polaroid photographs and showed them to Richard Ramirez, like what he had done to those people in the jungle. You have the Sunset Slayer, Jack Murray, who was befriended with Douglas Clark, the alleged perpetrator. He was also in a Phoenix operative, so you have many cases in that.
Well, describe, let's start with Shawcross. Describe his crimes and what he would do, because he was doing the same thing when he came back, putting heads on sticks.
Yes, exactly. He was going to I think it was the Seattle Strip, and he was going to visit prostitutes. And to his comments were that he was paranoid that they were giving them AIDS and other clients, and he would take their lives. But if you research those killings, it really looked like occult rituals. Like it had more than the most likely killing with strangulation and just stabbing or beating someone to death. So it had an occult ritual attached to it, I think.
Now, that's interesting, too. Another common denominator in this is many of the targets, the victims, are usually prostitutes. Now, do you think that's just because they're on the fringe, they're weak, no one's looking for them, or could it possibly be that they're involved in blackmail rings? Because there's a lot of blackmail and prostitution and escort services.
Yes, that's a very good statement. I really think it's the last one, yeah. I really think that some of those girls were seen with people who were not happy about that and were forced into prostitution and into blackmailing and eventually death, yeah.
Yeah, there's a huge... People have no idea how much blackmailing goes on with escort services. Even the average person will go to an escort